Hey guys, tonight we settle into a world that feels impossibly far from your own, yet in many ways is startlingly familiar. Before starting, subscribe the channel. You are standing at the mouth of a limestone bluff in what will one day be southern France. The year round 34, the air carries the sharp chill of the glacial season, the kind that bites your lungs and makes every breath puff white against the dusk. Below you stretches a wide valley, split by a restless river, whose banks are dusted with frost. Scattered fires glow like small stars in the twilight, marking where families of hunter-gatherers have pitched their hide shelters. You can smell wood smoke, roasting marrow, and the faint tang of animal hides left to dry on frames. It is noisy too, children laughing, dogs barking, flint tapping, bones cracking, and yet underneath all of this daily bustle, there is a sense of anticipation, because soon the firelight will gather the clans together, and with it will come dancing, song and ritual. Of course, you probably won't survive this Ice Age night without layers of furs, a full belly, and the goodwill of your neighbors. Forget Wi-Fi, your main connection is whether someone shares dried meat with you. Still, there's a strange comfort in standing at the edge of camp, the cold creeping into your bones, while life hums around you. If you're curious about how humans danced, celebrated, and survived in a time when glaciers loomed on the horizon, you've come to the right story. Tonight's theme, Queen Alna, Dancer in the Firelight Rituals, will let you step into the shadows and sparks of an ancient night. Before we start, do me a favor, drop a comment with your location and local time right now. Think of it like joining the circle. We're all sitting around this big timeless campfire together, no matter where you are on the map. Now take a deep breath, get cozy, and let's step forward into the frost, the fire, and the flicker of memory. The encampment itself is larger than what you might expect for wandering Ice Age people. Maybe 60 or 70 individuals cluster here, though the number feels bigger in the half-light because of all the movement, the dogs weaving between legs, the children tumbling over furs, the echoing voices bouncing off the rock, bands who had been scattered for months, hunting separate herds, searching for flint seams, trading small treasures, now reunite in this valley. It is a place of safety, at least for a season, its limestone walls cutting the wind and the river, providing both water and fish. You pick your way down the slope, boots crunching frost, the hides of shelters flap like wings, staked into the soil, weighted with stones, and propped by mammoth bones or sturdy reindeer antlers. Some shelters are patched with woven grasses, brittle in the cold, but insulating. Smoke snakes upward through gaps, so thin at first you almost don't see it until the wind catches the thread and smudges it across the darkening sky. To your right, a young woman scrapes a horsehide with a sharp flake of flint. The sound is a steady rhythm, shack, shack. She pauses only to blow warmth into her hands before returning to the hide. Across from her, a man kneels by a fire, splitting marrow bones with a heavy hammerstone, the fat hissing and popping as it drips into the flames. The smell is intoxicating, primal. You want to dip your finger in the hot marrow and taste it, though you'd burn yourself before the flavor ever touched your tongue. At the center of the camp, a group of older hunters laugh around a pit, roasting venison. One man gestures dramatically with a half-gnawed bone as he recounts how a reindeer nearly bowled him over during the last drive. His companions heckle him mercilessly, miming his tumble into the snow. Even here, in a world of harsh survival, mockery is as much a glue as meat or fire. And everywhere you look, there's ochre. Red powder smears the edges of tents where someone marked them, streaks on foreheads of children, traces on beads strung around necks. It's as though the earth's blood has been lifted into camp and made into paint, blessing or warning. You'll notice that detail again and again as the night unfolds. The limestone bluff itself shelters a cave mouth, yawning dark behind camp. You can't help glancing at it. Shadows writhe across the rock as the fires leap, suggesting figures, animals, eyes. Maybe later someone will lead you inside to see drawings on the walls, but for now the cave remains closed, a black throat swallowing the last of daylight. You weave further in, greeted by nods and half smiles. Hospitality matters here. Strangers might carry obsidian from hundreds of kilometers away, or stories of a distant valley's abundance, or they might carry trouble, but as long as you're near the fires, you're tolerated. At the edge of one shelter, two children chase each other, clutching sticks like spears. They shriek when one narrowly misses a dog's tail, and the dog whirls around to bark indignantly. The game breaks up with gales of laughter. Their mother calls them over, handing them lumps of roasted root to quiet them. Parenting, it seems, has always been about finding the quickest way to silence chaos. You pause at a fire where a group of women kneel, their hands busy with threads of sinew. They are sewing small shells onto a strip of hide, jewelry for later perhaps, or adornments for ritual costumes. One woman, older, her hair streaked with white, leads the work. She murmurs instructions, occasionally pausing to squint at the shells in the firelight. You recognize her from whispers already. She is Queen Alna, not a queen in the crown and throne sense you know, but a matriarchal leader, a keeper of memory, one whose presence commands attention even when she says little. Alna looks up briefly as you pass. Her eyes are bright, catching sparks of firelight, and her painted face, streaked with ochre and charcoal, seems carved from the same stone as the bluff. She doesn't smile exactly, but she doesn't need to. The nod of acknowledgement is enough. Behind her, another woman beats a hollow log with 2 sticks. The rhythm is slow, steady, not quite music yet, more a heartbeat, something that underpins the night. Children sway unconsciously to it, even as they gnaw marrow bones. The fire catches in their eyes and you suddenly see what the evening is moving toward: a gathering, a performance, a ceremony that draws everyone together. Still, before the dancing comes the labor. You watch hunters returning from the valley floor with heavy loads of meat slung on poles between them. Blood stains the snow, steaming in the cold, as they heave the carcasses closer to the fires. Others swarm in, knives flashing, to help butcher. Muscle, sinew, bone, hide, nothing will go to waste. Some pieces go straight to the flames, others are hung to dry, others packed into hide bags with snow to preserve. The soundscape is almost overwhelming: bones cracking, fires popping, voices rising in argument or laughter, dogs yelping for scraps. You crouch near one fire where a young man shapes a flint core. His blows are sharp, deliberate, sending flakes flying in arcs that catch the light before falling into the dust. Each flake is razor sharp, useful for cutting meat or shaping wood. He barely looks up as he works, so focused is he on the rhythm of striking. After a few minutes he inspects the flake, nods, and sets it aside with a small pile. Efficiency matters. The camp will need dozens of blades in the coming days. The night deepens. Stars spill out overhead, cold and brilliant. The moon rises, a thin crescent like a bone shard scraped against the sky. Fires glow more intensely now, little suns scattered across the valley floor. The shelters, the tools, the laughter, the food, all of it builds a sense of community, fragile yet stubborn against the ice age. And at the heart of it all, there is Alna. Though she hasn't moved much, you notice the way people glance toward her, subtly aligning their actions to her presence. A child brings her a cup of warm broth without being asked. A hunter lays a strip of decorated hide at her feet. Even the woman drumming shifts her rhythm slightly when Alna clears her throat. Leadership here is not shouted, it is absorbed, embodied, carried like a quiet gravity. Hours pass and the camp settles into its rhythm. Fires are fed, meat roasted, tools made, hides scraped, but an energy builds too, something you can feel in your chest. The heartbeat rhythm of the drum becomes more insistent, the chatter quieter, the glances toward Alna more frequent. The valley is preparing for something beyond survival, beyond food and warmth. It is preparing for firelight rituals, for dance, for a night where the ordinary transforms into something greater. You sit back, breath steaming, and realize you've arrived, not only at a camp, but at the edge of a tradition older than memory, older than writing, older than anything you can imagine. And tonight, under the eye of Queen Alna, you're about to step into the circle where fire, flesh and spirit meet. The first light of morning has not yet crept into the valley when the encampment begins to stir again. Smoke clings low to the ground, curling from the embers of fires that smoldered through the night. You wake to the sound of scraping stone on bone, bone on hide, the steady hiss of air pulled into a sleeping fire to coax it back into flame. You tug your fur closer, the cold gnawing through every layer, and remember that here survival starts with daily repetition. The valley is alive before dawn. Women crouch near fires, coaxing sparks into flames with tinder of dry grass and shredded bark. The smell of smoke is harsh in your nose, but you lean into it because it means warmth. A young girl adds twigs, her hair wild from sleep, eyes still heavy. She yawns so wide you think she might swallow the sparks. Her mother nudges her back to the fire, muttering something sharp but affectionate. Sleepy or not, everyone works. Hunting parties are already leaving camp. You watch silhouettes move across the frost in the half-dark, spears clutched tightly, bows strung, flint tips gleaming faintly. Dogs follow at their heels, tails alert, whining at the prospect of a chase. The hunters are quiet, No laughter now, because prey waits beyond the ridge. Reindeer herds move at dawn, and timing is everything. Back in camp, others focus on survival tasks. At one shelter, 2 men squat with antler picks, chipping stone flakes into sharp points. The rhythm of flint knapping punctuates the morning, like a drumbeat of necessity. Each blow splits stone into razor edges, thin as paper, sharp enough to cut tendon or skin with one careless brush. The men murmur to each other about the thickness, about which flake will serve as an arrowhead and which belongs in a knife. Every piece of flint, every shard of obsidian is precious, traded from far valleys or carried on long migrations. Nearby, women grind roots into mash with heavy stones. The thud 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 carries across the camp. Some roots are bitter but edible, others nourishing if mixed with fat or meat. A toddler crawls close, reaching for a root chunk. His mother pulls him back with a firm grip, scolding. He howls, then stuffs his thumb into his mouth, glaring at the root as though it betrayed him. Food is everything here. Men return with meat or they don't. Women gather tubers, berries, nuts and whatever plants the frost hasn't killed. The division isn't absolute. Women join hunts, men scrape hides, but everyone has roles that keep the band alive. If you falter, if you fail to contribute, others notice. The Ice Age doesn't care about excuses. You shift closer to another fire where hides are being stretched and scraped. One woman works methodically, pulling a stone scraper across a deer hide in long strokes. Her arms flex, her breath clouds. She hums under her breath, a tune so low you almost don't hear it. Children mimic her rhythm, pounding sticks against the frozen ground in time with the scraping. Work becomes music. Music becomes memory. The shelters themselves are marvels of necessity. You duck into one to escape the wind, and the air inside is thick and warm. Reindeer hides line the floor, mammoth bones arch overhead, and furs block the gaps where cold might seep in. The interior smells of sweat, smoke and damp leather, but it is better than the sharp air outside. Tools are stacked neatly against one wall, flint knives, bone needles, awls. Bundles of sinew hang from the roof poles. Skins in various states of preparation lie in piles, some stiff, some supple, some still bleeding. The shelter is a workshop, a bedroom, and a kitchen, all in one. Back outside you hear laughter. A small group is gathered near the edge of camp, watching 2 young men spar with spears. They jab and feint, their feet sliding in the frost. The crowd shouts encouragement, calling out when one nearly catches the other. One boy stumbles, falls, and the crowd roars with laughter. He springs up, grinning despite the bruise that will bloom later. This is training, but also play practice, for hunts and battles wrapped in the joy of competition. The air is full of smells now, roasting meat, boiling marrow, damp hides, smoke clinging to fur. You feel hungry just standing there, but you also feel heavy with the work you see. Everyone is always in motion, always shaping, scraping, grinding, or carrying. Even when they rest, they are preparing, twisting sinew into cord, carving flutes from bird bones, stringing beads from shells. The beads catch your eye. One woman sits cross-legged, her lap full of shells drilled with tiny holes. She threads them onto sinew, knotting them in careful patterns. She hums as she works, pausing now and then to hold the beads against the light. These decorations will adorn a dancer's costume later, perhaps Alna's, perhaps another woman's. They are more than pretty objects. They are symbols of memory, of exchange, of identity. To wear them is to show connection, to carry meaning on your body. Across the camp, a boy tends a fire pit, where fat renders from bones. The liquid drips into a carved stone trough, sizzling as it hits. He stirs it with a stick, watching the fat bubble. Later it will be mixed with ochre to paint bodies or used as fuel for lamps in the cave. The boy takes his work seriously, scowling at anyone who comes too close. A girl teases him anyway, flicking snow onto the fire. He yelps and shoves her, nearly spilling the fat. They laugh, but he checks the trough anxiously, as though it were treasure, and in truth it is. You look again toward the cave mouth. Smoke from the camp drifts toward it, curling into the dark like incense. No one enters yet. The cave is not a casual place. It waits for ritual, for gathering, for transformation. For now, daily life keeps people at the threshold, busy with tasks. But you sense that everything in camp, every scraped hide, every marrow bone, every bead, is moving toward that darkness, toward the firelight that will dance on stone walls. Queen Alna herself appears again, stepping from her shelter. She is wrapped in heavy furs, her hair braided and streaked with ochre. Around her neck hang beads and ivory pendants, their surfaces polished smooth by years of touch. People look up as she walks past. Not a word is spoken, but bodies shift, eyes follow, hands pause in their work. Authority radiates from her like heat. She kneels by a fire, takes a strip of meat and begins to eat in silence. The camp exhales, as though reassured. The rhythm of the day deepens. Hunters return with a small kill, 2 reindeer dragged on sledges made of poles. Blood darkens the snow behind them. The camp stirs again, people rushing to help butcher, knives flash, hands plunge into steaming entrails, dogs whine at the edges. The smell is rich and metallic, the steam clouding into the air. Children are shooed away though they peek through gaps wide-eyed. Work is swift, efficient, brutal. Meat is divided, hides stretched, bones set aside for tools. Nothing is wasted. The scene is both gruesome and matter-of-fact, survival rendered in red and white. And still, amidst all this labor, there is laughter. A man slips in the blood-slick snow, falling flat on his back. The others howl with amusement, pointing, mimicking his flailing arms. He rolls his eyes but grins, flicking blood at them. In a world this harsh, humor is not luxury, it is lifeline. By midday, fires blaze high, meat cooks, roots steam, fat drips. The camp smells like feast, though portions are modest. People eat with hands, grease slicking their fingers, bones cracked between teeth to suck marrow. Dogs snarl for scraps, snapping at each other, sometimes stealing outright. Children smear food across their faces. Adults shake their heads but keep eating. Hunger does not wait for neatness. After eating, the camp settles into quieter tasks. Some nap sprawled near fires, others mend clothes, threading sinew through holes in hides. One woman sings softly, her voice low and even, like a river running. Children drowse against their mothers, lulled by the song and the warmth. For a moment the camp feels almost peaceful, almost safe. You lean back, watching the smoke twist into the pale sky. The limestone bluff looms overhead, its caves waiting. You know that tonight, when the sun sinks and stars return, the camp will gather for ritual. But for now, you sit in the heart of daily life, scraping, grinding, cooking, sewing, laughing, singing. The world is harsh, yes, but it is also full. And as you sit, you realize, survival is not only about food or warmth, it is about rhythm, the rhythm of scraping hide, of striking flint, of pounding roots, of laughter echoing against stone. Every sound, every motion, every heartbeat ties the camp together, weaving life from labor. It is not glamorous, but it is steady, and in this steadiness, the people find not only survival, but meaning. The hunt begins before you even know you are awake. The frost is still thick on the hides of the shelters, the air biting as if knives had been drawn from the glaciers themselves. When voices murmur and dogs whine, you rub the crust of sleep from your eyes, breath clouding into a pale fog, and you realize the hunters are already gathering near the edge of camp. Today is not about roots or scraps, or lucky finds. Today is about meat on the scale that can carry the band through weeks of cold. You step closer, crunching through frost, and watch them prepare. Spears lean against the limestone bluff, their flint tips gleaming faintly in the grey light. Bows are strung tight, sinew taut as the muscles of the men and women stretching their shoulders. Arrows tipped with fine flakes rest in quivers made from hide, the fletching of feathers, angled to spin the shaft true. Clubs and axes lie within reach. Every tool has been sharpened, every knot checked, every strip of sinew tested. Mist clings to the valley floor beyond, but the hunters' minds are sharper than the frost. Dogs circle nervously, tails stiff, ears forward. They know what is coming. One growls low, and another snaps at it, the sound like flint striking flint. A boy no more than 12 grips his spear too tightly, knuckles white, trying to hide the tremor in his fingers. His father bends down, mutters something into his ear, then ruffles his hair with a rough tenderness. The boy's jaw hardens. He will go, and he will learn. The prey is reindeer. They move across this valley at predictable times, following grazing routes, noses buried in frost-bitten grasses. A herd has been spotted not far from here, dozens of them, huddled together for warmth, antlers like a forest of bone against the horizon. To bring one down is survival, to bring down several is fortune. The plan is simple, though nothing in this world is easy. The hunters will drive the reindeer toward the river bend, where the land narrows, forcing them into a funnel. Spears and arrows will rain down, dogs will harry from the sides. chaos will do the rest. If the reindeer break through, the hunt may fail. If the hunters falter, injury or death is possible, but hesitation is worse than danger. You follow the group as they set out. The cold air stings your lungs with each breath. Frost crunches underfoot, mingled with the muffled panting of dogs, and the occasional grunt of a hunter shifting his load. The valley stretches wide, snow glittering where the sun peaks over the horizon. The limestone bluff shrinks behind you, the camp now only a smear of smoke rising into the pale sky. Ahead, the land dips toward the river, where the ground softens and bends. One hunter, a woman with ochre smeared across her cheeks, signals the group to halt. She crouches, touching the ground. The faint prints of hooves mark the frost, dozens of them, fresh and clustered. She looks up, eyes bright, and nods. The herd is close. The hunters split. Some loop wide, circling to the far side of the herd. Others wait near the funnel of the river bend. You stay with the main group, creeping forward through sparse trees. The smell of animals reaches you first, musky, sharp, heavy. Then you hear them, the snort of breath, the crunch of hooves in frozen earth, the low rumble of movement, and then through the mist, you see them. Dozens of reindeer, their coats thick and shaggy, their antlers tangled like roots of trees. They move slowly, heads down, tearing at frozen grasses. Steam rises from their bodies in the cold, drifting upward like smoke. Calves stay close to their mothers, nudging for milk. For a moment it is peaceful, almost holy. You almost forget why you came. Then the signal comes, a sharp whistle, cutting the air. Hunters leap from hiding, shouting, waving spears. Dogs erupt forward, barking and snarling. The herd panics, heads jerking up, eyes wide. The first wave of reindeer bolts, hooves thundering, snow flying. They charge straight toward the river bend exactly as planned. Hunters chase, flanking them, driving them harder. You run with them, lungs burning, heart pounding. The ground shakes with the stampede. Arrows whistle through the air, some striking, some missing, some lodging deep in fur and flesh. A reindeer stumbles, an arrow in its neck, blood spraying hot against the cold. Another crashes into it, and both tumble in a tangle of legs and antlers. Dogs dart in, teeth flashing, pulling at throats. Hunters follow, spears stabbing. The snow stains red. But the herd surges on, more arrows fly, more spears thrust. The noise is overwhelming, shouts, barks, screams of animals, the crack of antlers colliding. You nearly slip in the churned snow, but a hand yanks you upright, shoving you forward. The boy with the trembling hands is beside you now, face streaked with sweat and terror, spear wobbling as he jabs at a passing flank. His spear strikes shallow, but it is enough to draw blood. His eyes widen, half in fear, half in triumph. One reindeer veers suddenly, charging toward the hunters. A man is caught in its path, struck hard by antlers. He crumples, groaning. Two others rush in, dragging him clear, while another drives a spear deep into the animal's chest. It thrashes, kicking wildly, before collapsing in the snow. The man lives, but his side bleeds where an antler tore flesh. He grits his teeth, refusing to cry out, while others bind the wound quickly with hide strips. There is no time for weakness here. The chase continues toward the river bend. The herd funnels tighter, animals jostling, panic growing. Spears flash again, arrows strike, dogs leap. More reindeer fall, their legs tangled, their bodies crushed under the weight of others. The air reeks of blood, sweat and fear. Your own pulse thunders in your ears. Finally the herd breaks past, scattering into the open plain beyond. The hunters pause, breath heaving, chests rising and falling like bellows. Dogs circle the fallen animals, snarling, tugging at carcasses. The hunters regroup, counting the kills. 4 lie dead, 2 more wounded, and limping not far off. A success, though not without cost. Work begins immediately. Knives flash as throats are cut, blood spilling steaming onto the snow. Skins are slit, guts pulled out, entrails steaming in the cold. The smell is thick, metallic, filling your mouth with a taste you cannot swallow away. Dogs lunge for scraps but are beaten back. The hunters work fast, dividing meat, stripping hides, cracking bones. There is no ceremony here, only urgency. Every moment wasted risks scavengers, wolves, hyenas, even lions in these lands. The ice age is never empty. The boy who struck his first blow kneels by a carcass, his hands shaking as he presses a knife into flesh. His father guides him, showing where to cut, how to peel skin, how to avoid wasting fat. The boy's face is pale, but he does not stop. By the time the hide comes free, Blood coats his arms to the elbow. He looks up, eyes meeting yours, and you see both horror and pride there. A rite of passage has been written in red. The hunters lash poles through carcasses, heaving them onto shoulders. They grunt under the weight, staggering, but they do not complain. This is wealth carried on backs, life carried home. The wounded man limps with them, refusing to be left behind. Blood drips down his side, dark against his hide clothing. He leans on another, but he walks. To falter too much is to risk being left. The march back to camp is long and slow, but the air buzzes with triumph. Dogs bark, hunters murmur, children will cheer when they see the load. Smoke rises ahead, guiding you back to the limestone bluff. When the first hunters stagger into camp, a cry goes up. People rush forward, touching the carcasses, laughing, clapping shoulders. Children shriek with excitement, chasing dogs, trying to peer at the bodies. Butchery begins anew. Fires roar higher. The air fills with the sound of knives, slicing, bones cracking, fat hissing. Meat is roasted immediately. Other cuts are dried, hung, stored. Hides are scraped, bones piled for tools. The camp is transformed into a workshop of survival. The smell is overwhelming, greasy, smoky, bloody. Your stomach growls, despite the heaviness in your chest. Queen Alna watches from her place near the central fire. She does not join the butchery, though her hands are busy with beads and ochre. Her eyes, sharp and steady, follow every motion. When the wounded man is brought before her, she nods, takes a strip of fat, and smears it across his wound with ochre. The gesture is not only healing but blessing. He bows his head, grimacing, and thanks her with silence. As night falls, the camp feasts. Meat sizzles on spits, marrow bones crack, fat drips into fire. People eat until their bellies are full, laughter rising into the dark. Children dance around fires, waving sticks, pretending to be hunters. Dogs snap up bones, tails wagging. The boy who killed his first reindeer sits proudly beside his father, a strip of meat clutched in his bloody hands. His grin is wide, his eyes are light. And as you sit with them, chewing roasted meat that drips grease down your chin, you realize that this, the hunt, the kill, the feast, is not just survival. It is rhythm, ritual, life itself. Every blow of the spear, every crack of bone, every burst of laughter ties the band together, binding them against the cold. You taste the future in the marrow, and it is heavy with both blood and hope. The hunters brought relief, but relief in this world is always temporary. Once the first rush of feasting fades, once the marrow bones are cracked and the fires burn low with grease, there is still the endless rhythm of labor. You wake the next morning to the sound of scraping again, scraping hides, scraping bones, scraping away at time itself, because survival here in 34,000 BCE is not a matter of grand events alone but of the daily grind. You tug the furs tighter around your shoulders and step outside the hide shelter. The air is raw and sharp, your lungs aching as they fill. Smoke hangs heavy, caught between the valley walls, mingling with the smell of blood still staining the snow from the butchery of the reindeer. Dogs nose at the crimson patches, whining, pawing for scraps that have already been taken. Ravens circle overhead, their caws harsh, waiting for the courage to swoop down. But the camp is awake, buzzing. One group of women crouches by a fire, stretching reindeer hides over frames of mammoth ribs. They scrape with flint blades, rhythmic, the sound like sandpaper on stone. Steam rises as fat softens near the flames. The hides must be thinned, cleaned and softened until supple enough for clothing or tents. The women chatter, their voices rising and falling like a song. One laughs loud at a joke, then wipes her nose on the back of her arm before returning to the work. The humor doesn't soften the difficulty, it only helps them endure it. A man nearby crouches over a pile of bones. With deliberate strikes he splits them, prying out marrow from those that were too thick to crack the night before. The marrow is scooped with fingers, eaten raw, smeared across hides, mixed with ochre. Nothing is wasted. Even the splintered shards of bone will be shaped into awls and needles, tools for sewing the hides into coats, leggings, shoes. You walk further and find the sinew stretchers. Strips of tendon from the hunt are being twisted, dried and pulled taut until they form strong cord. A woman chews one end to soften it, then threads it into a needle bone. Her hands work fast, accustomed to the pace of necessity. Cordage is as valuable as meat. It binds arrows, ties, shelters, fastens everything. Without it, nothing holds. Beyond them, children sit in a circle. At first you think they are playing, but you see the seriousness in their eyes, An elder kneels with them, a man with a scar that pulls across his cheek. He holds a small piece of flint and shows how to strike it with a hammerstone. The children watch, breath held as sparks jump. They gasp when he catches a spark on a tuft of dry grass, blowing until it glows, then flames. The children squeal, clapping. He laughs, letting them try their most, fumble and drop the stones. Still the lesson is clear, survival is taught young. You glance toward the limestone bluff. Shadows shift at its mouth. 2 women enter the cave, carrying small stone bowls. They are gone for a long while, and when they return, their bowls are filled with a thick, red paste. Oak, they've ground it deep inside, where the cave dust lies thick with ancient veins of iron. The color is startling in the daylight, vivid, raw like fresh blood. Children chase after them, but the women hush them, guarding the bowls. This pigment is not play, it is power. As the day lengthens, the camp fills with sound. Flint striking stone, hides rasping, marrow bones cracking, children squealing, dogs barking, fires roar higher, smoke thickening, meat hangs on racks, strips drying in the sun, fat drips into stone troughs. The valley smells like grease and smoke and iron-rich blood. You wrinkle your nose, but then your stomach growls. The smell is life itself. Queen Alna moves through it all, quiet but commanding. She speaks little, but every gesture ripples outward. A nod from her, and a hide is shifted closer to the fire. A glance from her, and children stop bickering. She ties shells onto a sinew cord, then hands it to a girl, who beams as though crowned. Leadership here is not about force, it is about gravity. People fall into her orbit, without thinking, without question. By afternoon, music begins to ripple through the camp. A boy blows on a bone flute, the sound high and reedy, like bird call. A woman beats a stretched hide, a slow, steady rhythm. Children clap, dogs howl, laughter rises. Work continues, but now it moves in rhythm. Scraping, pounding, grinding all sync with the drum beat. The camp itself becomes an instrument, every task part of a greater song. And slowly, you realize what is happening. The day's labor is not just for survival, it is preparation. Every hide stretched, every bead strung, every strip of meat dried is leading toward the night to come, toward the firelight rituals. As the sun dips, preparations intensify. Women smear ochre on their faces, streaks across cheekbones and foreheads. Men rub fat into their hair until it glistens in the firelight. Children are painted too, dots on their brows, stripes on their arms. The smell of ochre and grease mixes with smoke, heady and strange. Costumes emerge, hide cloaks decorated with shells and teeth, skirts fringed with sinew cords, necklaces of bone beads. One dancer ties a belt of hooves around her waist. When she moves, it will rattle like thunder. Another wears a mask made of bark and fur, eyes dark holes in the firelight. Dogs bark at the sight of it, hackles raised, until the dancer stamps a foot and they skitter back. Alna sits by the central fire, her body painted in ochre spirals, her hair braided and dusted with ash. Around her neck hangs a pendant carved from mammoth ivory, smoothed with age. She ties shells to her wrists, the sound a soft clatter as she lifts her hands. The camp falls quieter as people gather, drawn to her like moths to flame. The fires are fed, leaping high, sparks scattering into the night sky. Shadows stretch across the limestone walls. The smell of grease thickens as more fat is thrown into flames, making them raw. Children squeal, hiding behind parents. The drums begin, slow and steady, the heartbeat of the night. The dancers step forward, painted, costumed, masked. They begin to move. At first the steps are small, deliberate, stamping, swaying, turning. Shells rattle, hooves clatter, masks leer. The drums quicken, the flute shrieks, voices rise in chant. The firelight flickers across painted bodies, turning them into something more than human. You watch, transfixed as Alna rises. Her steps are measured, graceful despite her age. She raises her arms, shells clattering, and the camp erupts in sound. Children scream with delight, dogs bark, voices chant louder. She moves through the firelight as though born of it, her shadow huge against the limestone bluff. She stamps, spins, sways, her voice a low chant that grows into a shout. And suddenly you understand, this is not mere dance, this is survival made sacred. The hunt, the feast, the labor, all of it leads here to this circle of fire and song. Here, the people transform fear into rhythm, hunger into movement, death into memory. The night stretches long, the fire roars, drums pound, dancers leap, you lose track of time, shadows whirl, ochre streaks glisten, beads rattle, voices echo off the stone. The valley becomes a place between worlds, half human, half spirit, pulsing with life older than language. And when at last the fire burns lower, when dancers collapse breathless, when children curl into furs, the ritual leaves its mark. You feel it in your chest, in the ringing of your ears, in the warmth of your skin. You feel it in the silence afterward, heavy and holy. Here, in the scrape of flint, in the crack of bone, in the sway of dancers in firelight, life continues, and Alna, painted, adorned, radiant in ochre, stands at its center, the gravity of survival itself. The fire from last night still smolders when you crawl from beneath the reindeer hides, but the valley has shifted. What had been a space of feasting and dance only hours ago is now a workshop of survival again. Ash drifts lightly on the air, sparks glow red among blackened logs, and the smell of smoke lingers on everything, on your skin, on the hides, even on the dogs that nose through scraps at the edge of camp. Your ears still echo with drums, your chest still remembers the rhythm, and when you catch sight of the limestone wall you swear you can almost see the shadows of dancers flickering against it, even though the flames are gone. But survival has no patience for memory. The day must begin. You rub the stiffness from your knees and watch as women and men alike move to the fire pits, coaxing embers into flame with bundles of grass. Soon the valley is alive with smoke once more, curling in pale columns toward the frosty sky. The rhythm of life returns, scraping hides, splitting bones, twisting sinew, all the sounds you now know so well. Yet today, you notice something different. The fires are not just for warmth or cooking. They are being fed deliberately, carefully, tended like something precious. Because tonight, the role of fire will not only be survival, tonight it will be story, spirit, and center. You crouch closer to one blaze. The wood cracks, sending sparks skittering into the cold. Someone has thrown fat into the flames, and it spits and hisses, releasing a heavy smell that clings to your clothes. You cough softly, but no one else seems to mind. To them the smoke is protection, against cold, against insects, perhaps even against spirits. You remember last night's chants, the way voices rose in time with the fire. Fire is not just tool here, it is companion, guardian, stage. Children gather near another fire, their faces painted faintly with the ochre smudges left from the ritual. They squat close, palms outstretched, chattering among themselves. One boy, perhaps 6, thrusts a stick into the flames, then yanks it back, waving it like a torch, laughing until his mother snaps at him. He drops it, scowling, and kicks snow over the ember. Even discipline is part of survival. At the far side of camp, a man sits cross-legged, carefully striking flint against iron-rich nodules. Sparks shower onto a bundle of dry grass until it smolders. He blows gently, coaxing life into the glow. The children crowd closer, wide-eyed. Fire is still magic to them, no matter how often they see it born. They squeal as the grass flares and the flame licks upward, dancing in the wind. The man smiles faintly, then gestures for them to bring sticks to catch the flame. He doesn't need to explain. They scramble eagerly, their small hands clumsy but eager. Lessons are woven into daily tasks, the sacred hidden in the ordinary. Your eyes drift toward Alna. She sits at the center of camp, always where the fire burns brightest. Today her face is calmer, those streaks of ochre still darken her skin from the night before. She warms her hands, gazing into the flames as though seeing beyond them. People come and go, dropping food, offering water, placing shells or beads at her feet. She accepts them silently, then lifts her head and studies the sky, where smoke thins into the pale morning. It feels like she is listening to something you cannot hear, watching something beyond the horizon. Soon the camp shifts into deliberate preparation. Men drag logs from the tray line, stacking them near the central fire. Women smear fat onto torches, tying them with sinew so they will burn long and bright. Others grind more ochre, mixing it with grease until it becomes a thick red paste. Children run errands, carrying bowls, fetching stones, chasing dogs away from meat. Even the injured hunter from yesterday, his side bound in hide, limps to the fire to help carve spears. No one sits idle. The day passes in steady rhythm. Fires blaze, drying strips of meat and softening hides. Sparks drift constantly in the air, like tiny stars descending from the smoke. You feel the warmth on your skin, sharp against the chill, and it makes you drowsy. But there is no time for sleep. By afternoon, The camp is already shifting toward the night to come. Drums begin early, not loud, not wild, but steady, a heartbeat that thrums through the camp. Someone adds a rattle, bones tied with shells that clatter softly. Voices hum in low tones, not yet chants, but a sound that underpins every motion. When women scrape hides, they do it in rhythm. When men hammer flint, their blows fall with the beat. Children tap sticks against stones, grinning. The camp itself begins to pulse, like a living body, every part moving in time with the fire's breath. As evening falls, the sky turns the color of ash and blood. Fires roar higher, fed with wood, fat, even dried dung. Smoke curls thick into the darkening air, but no one coughs now. They breathe it as though it is a blessing. The limestone wall glows orange, shadows twitching across its face. The cave mouth seems alive, its darkness shifting with the firelight. And then Alna rises. The camp falls quiet, except for the fire. She stands tall, her hair loose now, dusted with ash, her body streaked with spirals of ochre and black charcoal. Shells clink softly as she moves, beads catching sparks of light. She lifts a hand, palm out, and the drums stop instantly. Silence presses against your ears, broken only by the hiss of flames. Alna begins to chant. Her voice is low, rough, like wind through stone. The words are old, older than memory, but the rhythm carries them. She steps closer to the fire, stretching her arms wide. The flames leap higher, as though answering. People press forward, eyes wide, children clutching their mothers. Dogs whine, tails tucked. Even the fire seems to listen. The chant grows louder, rising and falling. A wave of sound. Others join in, voices layering, deepening. The drums return, slow and heavy, echoing the chant. Alna moves in rhythm, stamping her feet, her shadow towering across the limestone. She circles the fire, spirals of ochre gleaming, shells rattling. The dancers from last night join her, painted and adorned, their movements sharp and deliberate. Masks leer in the firelight, rattles shake, flutes keen. You feel it in your chest, the fire, the chant, the rhythm. It pulls at you, drags you into the circle. The flames flicker and twist, throwing light across faces painted red and black. Shadows leap, animals seem to move on the limestone wall, antlers swaying, hooves stamping. The fire itself seems alive, writhing, breathing, answering the song. Alna lifts her arms again, and the chant breaks into shouts. Dancers leap, stamping hard, shells clattering like thunder. Children squeal, clapping, stomping their feet in imitation. The fire roars as fat is thrown into it, flames shooting high, sparks scattering into the night sky. The heat blasts against your face, drying your eyes, making them water, but you cannot look away. You realize, in this moment, what fire truly is here. It is warmth, yes, it is cooking, protection, tool, but it is also spirit, bridge, memory. It is the heartbeat of the band, the stage of ritual, the voice of ancestors. Without it, survival would be impossible. With it, survival becomes meaning. The ritual stretches long into the night. Flames crackle, drums pound, voices rise until they blur with the roar of fire. The dancers sweat, shells clinking, ochre streaking down with heat. Alna moves tirelessly, stamping, spinning, chanting, her voice never faltering. She is fire embodied, queen of flame and shadow. The people follow her, drawn like moths, bound by her rhythm. When at last, the fire begins to collapse into glowing embers, the camp is exhausted. Dancers collapse, breathless, sweat streaming. Children doze against their mothers, eyes half open, still humming. Dogs curl close, their bodies twitching in sleep. The drums fade, the voices fall silent, the fire sighs into red coals. Alna kneels by the dying flame, her face shadowed, her eyes reflecting the last sparks. She whispers something you cannot hear, then scatters a handful of ochre into the embers. The red dust glows, flares, then fades into ash. The ritual is complete. You lie back, the sky wheeling above, stars sharp and endless. Smoke drifts across them, turning them into ghosts. Your chest still echoes with drums, your ears still ring with chants, your skin still feels the heat. You close your eyes and the fire burns behind your eyelids, eternal. Here, in 34,000 BCE, fire is not only survival, it is life, it is story, it is memory, and in the hands of Queen Alna, it is everything. The fire is low when the first light of dawn reaches the valley. Embers glow faintly, releasing thin threads of smoke that drift over the limestone bluff. You rise stiffly, every muscle still humming from the night of dancing. The echoes of drums remain in your chest, faint as a memory, but undeniable. Yet morning demands its own rhythm, and today that rhythm begins not with fire, but with the steady pulse of feet stamping on frost. You hear it before you see it, a low thudding, a shuffle, then another shuffle, then a pause. When you round the edge of the central fire pit, you find a group of women standing in a circle, their feet bare despite the cold. They move slowly, deliberately, their ankles decorated with small bones and shells that rattle with each step. Their bodies sway, their arms sweep outward, and their voices hum in unison, a sound so low it almost blends with the wind. The ritual from last night has spilled into morning, softened, stretched into something both mundane and holy. Children watch wide-eyed, mimicking the steps in exaggerated fashion. They stomp too hard, laugh too loud, fall on their bottoms, and scramble up again. Their mothers hush them, but their eyes shine. They know these dances will one day be theirs to carry. Queen Alna stands among them, her body painted still, though the ochre streaks have smudged in the night. Her hair is tangled, her voice hoarse, but when she lifts her arms, the circle tightens, the rhythm sharpens. She stamps once, twice, 3 times, and the sound reverberates across the valley, bouncing against stone. Her movements are not wild, they are measured, controlled, purposeful. Each gesture carries weight, as though she is not only dancing but shaping the air itself. This is no mere performance, it is a practice, a teaching, a memory etched into muscle and bone. You realize suddenly that these steps are older than Alna, older than her mother, older than anyone here. They are inherited, passed down like the flint blades and the beads, carried across generations without ever being written, without ever being forgotten. To stamp is to remember, to sway is to preserve, to dance is to live. The circle expands, drawing in more people. Men return from fetching wood and join, their heavy feet shaking the frost loose. Even the injured hunter from the reindeer drive limps forward, his side bound tight, his movements stiff but determined. He stamps carefully, every step a declaration, I am still here. The rhythm grows, shells rattle, beads clink, voices hum, the camp itself begins to pulse. The scraping of hides matches the beat, the hammering of flint follows the tempo. Even the dogs seem caught in it, pacing and circling, whining softly. The valley has become a drum, and everyone is part of its skin. As the morning grows brighter, the circle breaks apart. Tasks call, duties cannot be ignored. Women return to their hides, men sharpen spears, children fetch water, but the rhythm lingers, an undercurrent in every motion. You can hear it in the scrape of stone, in the crack of bone, in the hiss of fire. The dance has shifted from circle to camp, its energy spread like embers blown across snow. You watch Alna closely. She does not return to her shelter or sit to rest. She moves among the people, touching shoulders, nodding at work, correcting a child's stance with a firm grip. She hums softly under her breath, a tune that others unconsciously echo. Her presence is not commanding, not loud, but it shapes everything. Where she walks, rhythm follows. Later, as the sun climbs, a new form of dance begins. Children gather near the central fire, guided by 2 young women. They line up, awkward, their bodies thin and shivering but their eyes bright. One of the women claps a rhythm, sharp and steady. The children stamp in time, giggling when they miss, scrambling to catch up. The second woman demonstrates, her steps exaggerated, her arms sweeping. The children copy, clumsy but eager. Their laughter rings across the valley. This is more than play, it is instruction, rehearsal. The children are being folded into tradition, their bodies trained to remember what words cannot hold. Even their mistakes matter, the giggles, the stumbles, the recoveries, because they teach persistence. Dance is not only about beauty here, it is about continuity. You notice how props are used in these lessons. A boy holds a stick, swinging it like a spear as he stamps. A girl wears a string of beads, shaking them as she turns. Another child drags a small hide drum, beating it erratically, laughing when the rhythm falters. They are learning not just movement, but meaning, the way dance connects with tools, with sound, with survival. As midday approaches, the pace of life shifts again. Fires roar higher, meat cooks, fat drips. The smell fills your nose, rich and heavy. People eat quickly, fingers slick with grease, mouths full. The dancers chew too, laughing, wiping sweat from their brows. Food fuels rhythm as much as it fuels muscle. After the meal, the camp rests. Some nap sprawled near fires, others sit in groups, repairing tools, sewing hides, braiding hair. Children doze against their mothers, still humming softly. The valley falls into a lull, a breath between beats. But even rest carries rhythm. A woman braids sinew cords, her fingers moving with a pattern. A man carves a bone flute, scraping with steady strokes. A child rocks back and forth in sleep, his lips moving in dream song. The camp never truly stills. As the sun begins to sink, preparation stirs again. Drums are brought out, shells rattled, masks adjusted, fires are fed, their smoke thick and fragrant with pine and fat. The limestone bluff glows red, then orange, then gold as the sun's light fades and the fire's light takes over. The valley shifts from day to night, from work to ritual. The dancers gather, painted anew with ochre and ash, their bodies gleam in the firelight, their movements sharp, deliberate. Alna steps forward, her arms raised, her eyes bright. She stamps once, and the camp answers with a cheer. The dance begins again, but tonight it is different. The rhythm is faster, sharper, more urgent. The drums pound like thunder, the rattles shake like storm wind, the flutes keen like birds fleeing. The dancers leap higher, spin faster, their shells clattering wildly. Shadows whip across the limestone, animals and spirits flickering in firelight. Children squeal, adults chant, dogs bark. The valley becomes a whirlwind of sound and motion. Alna moves at the center, tireless, fierce, her body a conduit of energy. She is not simply leading, she is channeling something larger, something that seems to rise from the ground itself. You feel it in your bones, in your blood. The rhythm seizes you, shakes you, pulls you into the circle. You stamp, you sway, you chant without knowing the words. The fire roars, sparks flying into the night, stars wheeling above like dancers themselves. And as you move, you realize, this is the origin of ritual. This is where memory becomes muscle, where survival becomes song, where life becomes meaning. Dance is not decoration, it is necessity, as vital as food, as essential as fire. It binds the people together, it links them to the earth, it carries them through the endless cold. When the dance finally ends, when the fire collapses into glowing coals, when sweat drips and breath heaves, the camp is transformed again. People collapse into furs, laughing, panting, glowing with heat and joy. Children curl into mothers' arms, eyes heavy. Dogs sprawl in the warmth. The drums fall silent. The flutes lie still. The rattles rest. But the rhythm lingers. You feel it in your chest, in your skin, in the ground beneath you. It will never leave. Here, under the eye of Queen Alna in the glow of firelight, the origins of ritual are born, and you caught in the circle will carry that rhythm forever. The valley is quieter today, not silent. Nothing here is ever silent, but quieter, as though the fires, the drums, and the stamping of feet have pressed the whole encampment into a rare pause. The smoke still curls from smoldering logs, dogs still nose through scraps, and the sound of scraping hides still drifts through the air. Yet the intensity of last night's dancing has left the people hushed, slower, heavier. You notice it in the way bodies move. Men sharpening flint do so with slower strikes. Women stirring bone broth lean heavily on their stones, pausing longer between turns. Children tumble in the frost, but collapse sooner, lying sprawled on their backs, chests rising and falling in exhaustion. Even the dogs yawn often, stretching lazily by the fire pits. The night of ritual has pressed on every creature here. And yet amid this quieter rhythm, you notice something profound. The women of the camp do not stop. If anything, their work becomes sharper, more deliberate. The firelight rituals might end with the embers, but the authority of women, especially in these rituals, does not fade. Queen Alna rises early, her face still marked faintly with ochre streaks, though much of it has been rubbed away by sweat and sleep. Her hair is tangled, but her eyes burn as bright as ever. She walks the camp slowly, leaning on a carved staff of mammoth ivory. Children bow their heads as she passes. Hunters nod quietly, lowering their tools. She does not need to speak. Her presence is weight enough. You follow her movements, watching as she stops near a group of women scraping hides. She studies their work, then takes a scraper herself. Though she is old, her hands move with practiced strength, pulling smooth strips from the flesh. Her motions faster than the younger women. They laugh nervously, one muttering that she still shames them all. Alna only smiles faintly, handing the scraper back before moving on. Her lesson is clear. She has not forgotten the labor that sustains them. Nearby, another woman gathers children around a fire. She crushes red ochre into powder, mixing it with fat in a stone bowl until it becomes thick paste. She paints stripes across the children's arms, dots on their brows, spirals on their cheeks. The children giggle and squirm, but she hushes them, reminding them that the marks protect, that the paint is not decoration but shield. You realize this is more than ritual, it is teaching. The next generation learns early that paint, like fire, binds them to something greater. Women here do not merely serve, they guide, they shape, they command. You see it in every corner of camp. One directs hunters as they prepare spears, reminding them where to tie sinew for strength. Another oversees the drying of meat, adjusting racks, scolding a boy who lets fat drip into the dirt, even in tasks that seem small, stirring broth, weaving cords. The authority of women is present. They are not hidden behind the men, they are at the center, visible, necessary, powerful. The children know this instinctively. When a dispute breaks out, a boy steals a girl's bead necklace, the argument is not carried to his father, but to his mother, who slaps his hand and forces him to return it. The girl grins smugly, the lesson clear. Women arbitrate and their word is final. You glance back to Alna, now seated near the central fire. People bring offerings to her, beads, carved bones, scraps of hide, even food. She accepts each silently, sometimes placing a hand on the giver's head, sometimes offering only a nod. It is not wealth she is gathering, it is respect, devotion, memory. To give to her is to tie oneself to the heart of the band. The rhythm of the day unfolds slowly but steadily. Women tend fires, feed children, stitch hides. Men repair weapons, drag logs for wood, hunt small game in the valley. But each task circles back to the authority of women, to their guidance, their memory. It is clear now, Queen Alna is not only dancer, not only leader of ritual, she is matriarch, keeper of balance, the one who binds survival and spirit together. As the afternoon deepens, preparations begin for another gathering, not as wild as the nights before, but deliberate, important. The women bring out objects you have not yet seen, figurines carved from ivory, beads strung in complex patterns, shells polished until they gleam. They arrange them near the central fire, careful, reverent. The children are hushed, the dogs pushed back. One by one, the women step forward, each carrying something made by her own hands, a shell necklace, a carved flute, a small stone figure streaked with ochre. They place these offerings at Alna's feet, creating a circle of memory around her. The men watch, silent. The children whisper, pointing. The fire crackles, throwing shadows across the objects. Alna lifts a carved figurine, small and smooth, shaped like a woman with wide hips and heavy breasts. She holds it high, her voice rising in chant. The women echo her, their voices weaving together, low and resonant. The figurine gleams in the firelight, its surface polished by countless hands. You realize then what this is, the honoring of women themselves. Not only Alna, not only the living, but all women, the givers of life, the keepers of memory, the dancers in firelight. This is no small ritual, it is the acknowledgement that without them, the camp would wither. The men may hunt, but the women sustain. The men may strike, but the women preserve. The band belongs to both, but its rhythm flows through the hands of women. The chant rises, louder, stronger. Alna stamps her staff into the earth, once, twice, 3 times. The shells rattle, the beads clink, the fire leaps. The children clap their hands, the men bow their heads. The valley hums with the sound of voices, of respect, of unity. And when it ends, silence falls heavy. Alna lowers the figurine, placing it carefully back among the offerings. She sits, weary but unshaken, her eyes reflecting the fire. The camp exhales, the spell broken, but the memory lingers. Night falls gently, without the wild frenzy of drums and dancing. People eat quietly, sharing roasted meat and broth. Children curl into hides, painted faces smudging against fur. Men tell stories in low voices, laughter muted but warm. Women tend fires, their silhouettes tall and steady in the glow. Alna remains at the center, silent now, her staff across her knees. She watches the camp, every movement, every shadow, every ember. She is not only leader, not only dancer, she is queen in the truest sense, not by crown or throne, but by memory, by rhythm, by survival. As you lie back beneath the stars, smoke drifting overhead, you feel the weight of what you've seen. The role of women here is not hidden, not diminished. It is central, vital, unshakable, and at the heart of it all is Alna, dancer in the firelight, queen of rhythm, mother of memory. You close your eyes, the hum of chants still echoing in your ears, and you understand, in this world, power is not shouted, it is carried, embodied, lived, and it rests in the hands of women. The valley awakes again under a grey sky, the limestone walls damp with morning mist. Frost clings to the grasses, and the breath of every person, dog and reindeer carcass curls like smoke from invisible fires. The encampment is alive, though slower this morning. The rituals of the last nights, the stamping feet, the clattering shells, the spirals of ochre have left the people both weary and renewed. Today though, something new stirs. You sense it in the glances, in the way people pause when Alna passes, in the anticipation woven into ordinary tasks. This is the day the camp looks more directly to Queen Alna herself, not only as elder or dancer, but as the leader who embodies memory, ritual, and spirit. Her emergence is not sudden, it is the slow layering of years, of dances, of judgments made, of knowledge carried. Still, today you see it more clearly than ever before. She begins at the central fire as always. She sits tall despite her age, her ivory staff across her lap, her hair woven with beads. The ochre spirals on her cheeks are faint now, rubbed by days of movement and sweat, but her presence is brighter than the flames. Around her, the camp arranges itself unconsciously. Children play within sight of her, hunters pass by, their eyes flicking toward her as if to confirm her approval before leaving for the ridge. Women bring her scraps of food, placing them at her side without being asked. She eats little, but the offerings pile high. It is not a throne she holds, not even a designated space. It is gravity. People orbit her without being told, without even realizing it. The morning begins with work. The hunters prepare once more for a drive, this time smaller, targeting deer spotted at the far edge of the valley. Spears are checked, arrows sharpened, men and women both gather, painting their faces with quick streaks of charcoal, rubbing fat into their hair against the wind. Dogs pace, whining eagerly. Alna watches from her place by the fire, silent, but when one man argues too loudly with another about the path to take, she lifts her staff and taps it against the ground. The sound is sharp, cracking the argument in two. Both men bow their heads. She speaks only a few words, low and measured, but they nod, chastened. The hunters leave in silence, their dispute settled not by debate, but by her presence. You turn to see what happens behind them back in camp. The women gather children, assigning tasks, fetching water from the river, gathering kindling, grinding roots. Even here Alna's authority radiates outward. She does not instruct directly, but those who do, the mothers, the sisters, the aunts, carry her rhythm in their voices. They echo her calm, her steadiness, her control. By midday the hunters return with their kill, 2 deer, enough to sustain but not to feast. The camp stirs into action again, knives flashing, hides stretched, bones cracked. Yet even amid this familiar flurry, Alna is at the center. When the butchering is done, the first portion of marrow is carried to her. She accepts it, pressing her fingers into the fat, smearing it with ochre from a small pouch. She eats little, but the gesture is seen by all. It is not nourishment she claims, but symbolism, the marrow of life marked with the blood of earth. As the day lengthens, preparations for ritual stir again, not wild like before, not frenzied. This will be different. You sense it in the hush, in the way people speak softly, in the way children are hushed when they laugh too loud. Alna moves to the mouth of the cave, and for the first time since you arrived, she enters. The people follow, cautious, reverent. The air inside is cool, damp, heavy with the scent of earth and smoke. Shadows ripple across the walls where torches flare. The limestone walls are marked with paint, animals, spirals, handprints. Some old, faded, some fresh, gleaming red and black. The cave hums with memory, as though every mark still whispers. Alna walks slowly, her staff tapping against stone. She pauses at a painted bison, placing her palm against it. She murmurs words too low to hear. The others bow their heads, waiting. Then she moves deeper, stopping before a figure painted larger than the rest, a human form with antlers, body streaked with lines. She lifts her staff high, striking the ground. The sound echoes, filling the cave. The chant begins, low at first, one voice, then another, then another. It rises, swelling, until the cave vibrates with sound. The paintings flicker in torchlight, seeming to move, to breathe. Alna's shadow stretches tall, antlers sprouting from her own head in silhouette. She begins to stamp, her movements slow but deliberate, spirals of ochre catching the firelight. Others join, stamping, swaying, their rattles shaking, their flutes keening. This is her emergence, her claim, her proof, not shouted, not demanded, embodied. She is both woman and spirit, dancer and leader, elder and queen. She is the memory of those before her, the rhythm of those beside her, the guide for those who will come after. The ritual stretches long, the cave ringing with sound. Children sit wide-eyed, clutching their mothers, hunters bow their heads, women sway, their beads clinking. The fire roars, shadows leaping across painted walls. You lose sense of time, of place. There is only rhythm, only chant, only fire and shadow and the steady presence of Alna at the center. When it ends, silence falls like stone. The torches sputter, the drums fade. Alna lowers her staff, her body trembling, her breath heavy, yet her eyes gleam, her face radiant. She turns slowly, meeting the gaze of each person in the cave. No words are spoken, but the message is clear. She is their guide, their queen, their dancer in the firelight. The people file out slowly, quietly. Outside, the sky has darkened, stars spilling across it, fires are rekindled, meat roasted, children soothed. Life resumes, but different, changed. Alna sits once more by the central fire, her staff across her lap, her eyes reflecting the flames. No one questions, no one doubts. Her place is secure, unshakable. As you lie back, the stars wheeling overhead, you feel the weight of what you've seen. Alna has not risen suddenly, she has always been rising, but tonight, in the cave of painted spirits, in the circle of firelight, her emergence is complete. She is more than dancer, more than elder, more than leader. She is Queen Alna, chosen not by crown or bloodline but by rhythm, by memory, by survival itself. And you know, as you close your eyes to the smoke drifting above, that her shadow will remain here long after the fire burns out. The morning frost is thick, a brittle crust on every blade of grass, every hide shelter, every mammoth bone post jutting from the ground. When you step out into the valley, your breath plumes into the air like smoke, and you hear the familiar sounds, scraping, thudding, crackling. But today, something is different. The camp is already stirring with a purpose you feel in your chest before you understand it. Women crouch near fires mixing pigments, their hands stained red and black. Men gather branches, stoking flames until they roar higher than usual. Children hover around bowls of ochre, dipping their fingers eagerly until scalded. Tonight will not be ordinary. Tonight will be about paint, about transformation. Body painting has been part of every gathering you have witnessed so far. A streak on a hunter's cheek before the drive, a dot on a child's brow during games, spirals on arms during dance. But this time, you see the pigments prepared in greater quantity, the bowls larger, the fat thicker, the colors richer. The air hums with anticipation. At the center, as always, sits Alna. She has stripped to a hide skirt, her skin bare to the cold. Though her age has left her frame thin, she does not shiver. Her body is already streaked faintly with ochre from nights past, lines smudged, half faded. Now she is still. Wait. Women kneel around her, grinding ochre with stone, mixing it with marrow, spitting into it to bind it. The paste gleams slick in the light. One woman lifts a fingerful of red and draws a spiral across Alna's chest. Another smears black down her arms, in thick lines. Another dots her forehead. Slowly, layer by layer, her body is transformed into a canvas. Her skin is no longer flesh, but symbol, story, shield. The children whisper, pointing. The men stand back, respectful, eyes lowered. And then the others begin. Each person steps forward to be marked. A hunter receives a black line across his jaw. A mother gains red circles around her breasts. A child squeals as her cheeks are dotted. Even dogs are streaked with ochre, their fur bright against the frost. The whole camp becomes a gallery, painted bodies glowing in the light. You feel the difference immediately. Painted, they do not look merely human, they look like figures drawn on cave walls, like spirits come to life. Antlers are tied to heads, fur draped like cloaks, beads rattling at wrists. Some wear masks of bark, painted to leer with teeth and eyes. The firelight catches all of it, making shadows writhe on the limestone. When Alna rises, the camp falls silent. She holds a bowl of ochre in one hand, a staff in the other. She dips her fingers into the paint and scatters it into the flames. Sparks burst, glowing red. She lifts her arms high, spirals gleaming on her chest, and begins to chant. The drums answer, slow at first, steady, then faster. Flutes keen, rattles shake. The dancers begin, painted bodies stamping and swaying, shadows leaping tall against the bluff. The paint turns their movements into visions, spirals spinning, stripes blurring, dots flickering. The fire roars, fed with fat, sparks flying into the night. You watch, transfixed. The painted bodies do not seem human now. They seem like animals, like spirits, like something older than both. A man with antlers stamps like a stag, head tossing. A woman with spiral painted arms sways like a serpent. A child with dots on her cheeks hops like a bird. The paint transforms them, collapses the line between person and creature, between survival and symbol. Alna moves among them, her voice rising above the chant. She lifts her staff, painted black, and strikes the ground. Once, twice, 3 times. The drums follow, echoing. The dancers drop to their knees, bowing, their painted bodies gleaming in the firelight. She circles them slowly, scattering ochre over their heads, smearing spirals on their backs, pressing dots on their hands. Her touch makes them more than participants. It makes them marked, chosen. The ritual grows wilder. The painted bodies leap higher, their shadows flaring on the walls. Spirals whirl, stripes blur, dots pulse. The fire burns hotter, throwing heat against your face, drying your eyes. The smell of ochre and fat fills your nose. The sound is overwhelming, drums pounding, flutes shrieking, voices chanting, rattles clattering. You feel your chest vibrating with it. And yet, amid the frenzy, there is order. The paint is not random, it guides the movements. Spirals spin, lines strike, dots flicker. The dancers move as if controlled by the marks on their skin, as though the paint itself is the rhythm. It is not only decoration, it is direction, binding body and spirit, flesh and meaning. Children join, their small bodies painted with dots and lines. They squeal with laughter as they stamp, their movements clumsy but joyous. Parents clap, encouraging them, even in frenzy. Teaching continues. The next generation learns not only steps but symbols, not only rhythm but meaning. At the peak of the ritual, Alna lifts her bowl of ochre high and hurls it into the flames. The fire erupts, red sparks swirling like blood across the night sky. The people scream in awe, falling to their knees, painted faces glowing in the light. The flames twist, shadows leaping, the limestone alive with figures moving. And then, suddenly, silence. Alna lowers her arms. The drums stop, the dancers freeze, the fire crackles, the only sound. Slowly, one by one, the painted bodies lower to the ground, pressing their foreheads into the earth. The smell of ochre, sharp and metallic, fills your lungs. The paint cracks on their skin, flakes falling into the dirt. The ritual is complete. When they rise, their bodies smeared, their faces streaked, their eyes gleam with something fierce. They are not only people now, they are spirits, bound by paint, marked by ritual. They return to their shelters silently, carrying the ochre on their skin like armor, like memory, like truth. Alna remains by the fire, her spirals glowing faintly, her eyes reflecting the flames. She leans on her staff, her breath steady, her body trembling faintly. She has given everything, yet she stands still, unshaken. She watches as the camp settles, as painted bodies curl into hides, as children drift into sleep. She is the last to sit, the last to rest, the last to close her eyes. You lie back, the stars sharp overhead, smoke drifting across them. Your skin still smells of ochre, your eyes still sting with smoke, your chest still echoes with drums. You understand now, paint is not art, not decoration, it is survival. It is shield, symbol, memory. It binds the people to each other, to animals, to spirits, to the earth. And at the center of it all is Alna, her body painted in spirals and lines, her presence blazing brighter than the fire. The valley is restless, long before the sun climbs over the limestone ridge. The air is sharp and thin, every breath a cold bite, and the frost on the ground crunches beneath bare feet. You smell smoke and fat, hear the crackle of fires, and sense that something heavier than the usual rhythm is approaching. The ochre-painted bodies of last night are still faintly marked, smudges of red on cheeks and black lines across arms, and though the paint flakes, the meaning lingers. Today the preparation is for sound, for rhythm made from bone, hide and breath. You see it first in the hands of the children. A boy beats 2 sticks together, tentative, then faster. A girl shakes a string of teeth, grinning at the clatter. The sound is chaotic but joyful, tumbling across the valley like sparks from a fire. Adults glance over, not to scold but to nod. Practice begins young. Rhythm is a lesson no one can avoid. At the edge of camp, two men stretch a hide across a hollow log. The hide is raw still, fresh from the reindeer taken in the last hunt. They pull it tight with sinew, lashing it down until the skin vibrates when tapped. One man strikes it with a stick, and the sound is deep, booming, like the earth itself groaning awake. The others pause, heads turning, bodies shivering. The drum is more than noise, it is power. Nearby, a woman carves holes into the hollow bones of a bird. She lifts it to her lips and blows. A thin, shrill note pierces the air, startling the dogs. She adjusts her grip, blows again, and the sound wavers like wind through tall grass. She closes her eyes, playing a fragment of melody, a pattern repeated again and again until it feels like a memory. Children laugh, covering their ears, but some sway unconsciously, caught by the tune. Others rattle shells strung on cords, shake hooves, tied around ankles, beat sticks against stones. The camp fills with sound, not yet music, but the pieces of it, fragments, experiments, tests. It is messy, clattering, uneven. Yet beneath the chaos you sense something forming, the way sparks gather into flame, the way drops of water form a stream. Alna watches. She sits by the central fire, her staff across her knees, her eyes half closed, but you notice her foot tapping, faint, in time with the scattered sounds. When the drumming stutters, she frowns. When the flute note lingers too long, she shakes her head. She does not speak, but her body is the metronome. The others adjust to her pace without realizing it. By midday, the noise has sharpened. The drums boom steadily, flutes keen in rising arcs, rattles shake in rhythm. Children clap in time, their giggles now part of the beat. Even dogs join, barking at the sound, tails wagging in rhythm. The valley itself seems to vibrate, limestone walls echoing the thud and shriek. And then the dancing begins again. The drummers set the pace, steady, strong. The dancers follow, stamping feet into frost, spirals of ochre glowing on their skin. The rattles shake with each step, shells clattering like rain. The flutes weave high notes over it all, like birds spiraling above the hunt. Voices rise, chanting simple syllables, repeated until they blur into rhythm. You feel it in your chest, in your bones, in the ground beneath you. The camp is no longer a collection of people, it is one body, one heartbeat, one voice. The instruments themselves are sacred, you see it in the way they are handled. The drum is fed with fat, the hide oiled to keep it taut. The flute is wrapped in hide when not played, carried carefully like a child. The rattles are hung with beads and shells, decorated with paint. They are not tools only, they are spirits, vessels of sound. Alna rises, slowly, her hair braided with shells, her face repainted in red spirals. She takes a rattle from a young girl's hands, shakes it once, and the entire camp falls into silence. She stamps her foot once, twice, 3 times. The drummers follow, the flutes join, the rattles echo. The chant begins again, but now it is sharper, stronger, bound to her rhythm. She moves among the dancers, stamping, swaying, her shells clinking in time. She lifts her arms, and the flutes rise. She lowers them, and the drums soften. She circles the fire, her spirals glowing, her staff striking the ground in rhythm. She is not simply dancing, she is conducting, weaving sound and movement into one. The ritual builds, faster, louder, drums thunder, rattles shake, flutes shriek. The dancers leap higher, spin faster, their ochre-painted bodies blurring in the firelight. Children squeal, stamping in place. Men chant deep, women echo high, voices layering into a wall of sound. The valley shakes with it, the limestone walls thrumming like another drum. And then at its peak, silence again. Alna lifts her staff high, the sound cuts instantly, the drums stop, the flutes fall silent, the rattles still, only the crackle of fire remains. The sudden quiet is louder than the noise, everyone freezes, breath held, eyes wide. Alna lowers her staff slowly, she speaks a few words, her voice rough, her breath heavy. You do not understand them, but you feel their weight. They hang in the air, thick as smoke, binding the people in silence. Then she stamps once more and the sound returns, but softer now, gentler, like a heartbeat slowing into rest. The ritual ends not with frenzy but with calm. Drums fade, flutes soften, rattles hush, the dancers sway slowly, shells clinking faintly, children yawn, leaning against their mothers, dogs curl close to fires, tails twitching in sleep. The camp exhales as one, the tension released. Alna sits again by the central fire, her staff across her knees, her eyes glowing in the firelight. She is weary, her shoulders slumped, but her presence fills the valley still. She has not only led the dance, she has conducted the heartbeat of the people. As the night deepens, the camp settles, meat roasts, fat drips, broth bubbles, people eat quietly, voices low, laughter soft, children drift into sleep, painted faces, smudging against furs. The instruments are put away, wrapped carefully, guarded like treasures. The fire crackles, sparks spiraling into the sky. You lie back, the stars sharp overhead, your body still vibrating with rhythm. You understand now, instruments are not invention only, they are extension, amplification, embodiment. They carry the heartbeat outward, binding the people together, binding them to the earth. And at the center, as always, is Alna, dancer, leader, conductor, queen, the woman who shapes sound into survival, rhythm into meaning, fire into memory. You close your eyes, the echo of drums still in your chest, and know that tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, the rhythm will return, because rhythm, here is life. The frost has not yet melted from the grasses when the valley begins to stir again, though today the movement feels heavier, slower. Smoke clings low to the ground, wrapping the encampment in a veil of grey. Fires hiss faintly as damp wood burns, the scent of wet bark and grease, mixing with the morning air. People move through the haze with careful rhythm, voices hushed, bodies deliberate. It is not the weariness of ordinary survival you sense, it is something larger, heavier. The women are preparing, and the men keep their distance. Tonight will be for more than hunting or dancing. Tonight is for fertility, for survival, written not on the flesh of animals but on the flesh of people themselves. At the edge of camp, women gather around low fires. Bowls of ochre are mixed thick with marrow. Fat sizzles as it drips onto flames, the smoke rising sweet and acrid. The women's hands are steady, dipping fingers into pigment, smearing it across their arms and breasts. Spirals, dots and lines spread across skin, glowing faintly in the firelight. The younger women giggle nervously, whispering to each other as they are painted, but the older ones are silent, faces solemn. They know the weight of this ritual. Children are shooed away. Men sit at the far edges of camp, sharpening spears, mending hides, speaking in low tones. Their eyes flicker toward the central fire, but they do not cross the invisible line. This night is not theirs. This night belongs to the women. Alna sits in the center, her body already marked in heavy spirals of red and black. She is bare-chested despite the cold, her skin streaked with ochre that gleams in the fire. Beads hang from her hair, shells from her wrists, bones from her neck. She does not speak, but the women move around her as though drawn by her silence. They paint her again and again, layering spirals until her chest, arms and legs are covered. She is no longer simply Alna. She is more, a vessel, a spirit, a queen of fire and fertility. The preparations stretch through the day. Women weave cords of sinew strung with shells, tie beads into hair, drape cloaks of fur across shoulders. They crush roots and herbs, mixing them with fat into pastes that smell sharp, pungent, intoxicating. Some rub the mixture onto their bellies, others onto their thighs. You watch as the marks spread, and you understand, these are not decorations, these are prayer. By afternoon, the entire camp hums with tension. Fires are stoked high, smoke rising in heavy plumes. Drums are tightened, flutes tested, rattles shaken. Children are gathered into shelters, told to sleep early. Men stay near the outskirts, speaking softly, their faces grave. Dogs whine at the edges, uneasy with the thick scent of fat, ochre and smoke. And then the sun begins to sink. The limestone walls glow red, then orange, then gray. Shadows lengthen, firelight growing brighter. The air chills but no one shivers. The ritual is near. The drums begin first, slow, steady, deep. The sound rolls through the valley like thunder. Then the rattles join, shells clinking, beads clattering. The flutes keen high above it, shrill and sharp. The women step forward into the circle of firelight, their painted bodies glowing red and black, their beads and shells rattling with each movement. They begin to stamp, slow at first, then faster. Spirals blur across thighs, dots flicker on breasts, lines streak down arms. The fire roars higher, fed with fat, sparks bursting into the night sky. Shadows leap tall against the limestone, painted bodies flickering like spirits. Alna steps forward, her staff in hand. She stamps once, twice, 3 times. The rhythm shifts instantly, drums matching her pace, rattles echoing. She raises her arms, shells clinking, beads shimmering. Her voice rises, low and rough, then higher, then louder. The women echo her, their voices layering into a chant. The sound grows, filling the valley, pressing against your chest. You feel the ground shake beneath your feet, not from the earth but from the rhythm. The fire roars, the drums pound, the women stamp harder, their painted bodies gleaming with sweat. The chant rises higher, faster, wild. Then the gestures begin. A woman cups her belly, lifting it toward the fire. Another spreads her arms wide, spirals glowing on her chest. Another sways her hips, shells rattling, beads clinking. The movements are not random, they are deliberate, symbolic, ancient. They mimic birth, growth, life itself. Alna leads, her steps sharp, her arms sweeping. She turns slowly, her spirals whirling in the firelight. She stamps harder, her staff striking the ground, sparks scattering. She lifts her face to the sky, her voice rising into a cry that pierces the air. The women echo her screaming, wailing, chanting. The sound is raw, primal, overwhelming. Men at the edges of camp bow their heads. They do not join, they do not speak, they listen, reverent, awed, perhaps afraid. They know this power is not theirs. The ritual grows wilder. The women leap, spin, stamp. Spirals blur, lines streak, dots shimmer. The fire blazes higher, the smoke thicker, the air hotter. Sweat drips, paint smears, bodies gleam. The chants rise and fall, echoing against stone, rattling the night sky. At the peak, Alna hurls a bowl of ochre into the flames. The fire erupts, red sparks swirling into the sky. She screams, a sound that shakes your bones, and the women scream with her. They fall to their knees, pressing their painted bodies into the earth, smearing spirals and dots into the dirt. They pound the ground, stamping, chanting, crying. The fire roars, the drums thunder, the rattles shake, the flutes shriek. The valley itself seems alive, trembling with rhythm, with heat, with power. And then, silence. The drums stop, the flutes fall quiet, the rattles still, the fire crackles. The only sound, the women kneel, breath heaving, bodies trembling, paint smeared and cracked. Alna lowers her staff slowly, her eyes glowing in the firelight. She speaks a few words, her voice low, steady, final. The women echo, softer, fading into silence. They rise slowly, helping one another, touching shoulders, holding hands. They return to their shelters, their painted bodies glowing faintly in the firelight. The men remain silent, watching. Children stir in their hides, murmuring. Dogs whine softly. The valley breathes again. Alna remains by the fire, her staff across her knees, her eyes fixed on the flames. She is weary, her shoulders slumped, her skin streaked with sweat and ochre, yet her presence fills the valley still. She has led not only a ritual but a survival. She has bound the camp to life itself, to fertility, to future. As the night deepens, the camp settles. Fires burn low, smoke drifting. People sleep, their bodies curled in hides, their painted skins smudging against fur. Children murmur in dreams. Dogs twitch in sleep. The drums lie still, the flutes quiet, the rattles silent. But the echoes linger. You feel them in your chest, in your bones, in the ground beneath you. The fertility dance is not only memory, it is promise, it is survival, it is life written in paint, in rhythm, and at the center, as always, is Alna. Dancer, queen, mother of memory, keeper of survival. You close your eyes, the smell of ochre still heavy, the crackle of fire still in your ears, and you know the valley will remember this night, long after the paint has faded. Word count. Smoke drifts over the valley as dawn crawls into the sky, pale and cold. The ochre and charcoal marks from last night's fertility ritual still cling faintly to bodies, streaked across skin and hair, smudged against hides where people slept. The ground near the central fire is stained red and black, spirals and dots pressed into the dirt by stamping feet. The flames themselves have collapsed into ash, gray and lifeless, but the smell of grease and pigment lingers in the air, heavy, inescapable. And yet, despite the exhaustion of the ritual, the people stir with purpose. Hunger gnaws at bellies, mouths are dry from smoke and chanting, and survival does not pause for awe. The camp shifts back into its rhythm, though this morning the rhythm carries a different weight. Today is not only about eating. Today is about feasting. Not in wild celebration, but in the deliberate act of binding people together. Shared meals are not merely meals here, they are the sinew that ties the band, the ritual of trust, the rhythm of kinship. You see it begin with the fire pits. Men drag logs to the center, stacking them carefully. Women crouch low, blowing on embers until flames catch, feeding them with twigs, bark and dried dung. Smoke thickens, stinging your eyes, but soon the valley is alive again with the crackle of fires. Dogs bark and snap at one another near the edges, already sniffing for scraps. Children are sent to the river to fetch water in hide bags. They return stumbling, spilling half along the way, laughing despite the scolding they receive. The water is poured into stone bowls where roots and herbs are added. Broth begins to simmer, steam curling into the cold air. The smell of herbs mixes with smoke and grease, sharp but comforting. Hunters bring in the meat from yesterday's deer, dragging the carcasses close to the fire. Knives flash as hides are pulled free, sinews stripped, bones cracked, fat hisses as it drips into the flames. Sparks bursting upward. The smell is intoxicating, rich, heavy, primal. Even your mouth waters, though you know you must wait. The butchery is not chaotic, it is ordered, deliberate. Each cut has purpose: meat for roasting, marrow for broth, hides for stretching, sinew for cord, bones for tools. Nothing is wasted. Women direct the work, reminding the younger hunters where to cut, scolding boys who linger too close, handing dogs scraps only when they deserve it. The rhythm of their commands weaves through the camp like another drumbeat. As the fires grow hotter, spits are built, poles are sharpened and driven into the ground, meat skewered and suspended over flames. Fat drips steadily, flames leaping, smoke swirling. The smell spreads across the valley, thick, irresistible. Children crowd close, their stomachs growling audibly, until mothers swat them back. Dogs whine and paw at the ground, their eyes glowing in the firelight. Other cuts of meat are boiled in stone pots filled with water and heated with fire-warmed rocks. Hunters lift the rocks with sticks, dropping them into the pots, steam erupting in hissing clouds. The broth darkens, thickens, bubbling steadily. Women stir it with bone spoons, their faces glistening with heat, their arms painted faintly with the spirals of last night. Roots and herbs are added, some bitter, some sharp, some sweet. Children toss in handfuls, laughing when scolded for dropping too many at once. The broth becomes a thick stew, fragrant and rich, filling the air with warmth that clings to your skin. Nearby, marrow bones are split, the fat is scooped, eaten raw by some, smeared on hides by others, mixed into bowls of ochre for paint. A young girl licks her fingers greedily, grinning when her mother wipes her mouth with the corner of a hide. Even here, even in small moments, the feast is a lesson. Nothing is wasted, everything has purpose. By afternoon the fires roar high, spits heavy with roasting meat, pots bubbling with stew. The valley hums with anticipation. People gather, sitting in circles around the fires, talking quietly, laughing softly. The children's voices rise above it, squeals and giggles punctuating the low murmur of adults. Dogs weave through legs, tails wagging, eyes sharp for scraps. And then Alna rises. She has not moved much today, her body weary from the rituals of the past nights. Yet when she stands, the camp falls silent. She lifts her staff, its ivory surface gleaming in the firelight, and points it toward the spits. The hunters step forward, pulling meat from the fire, carving it with flint blades. The first strip is brought to her. She accepts it, holding it high. Her voice rises, chanting low and steady. The words are old, the rhythm familiar. The people bow their heads. She smears the meat with ochre from a small pouch, then bites it, chewing slowly, deliberately. She nods once, only then does the feast begin. Meat is carved and passed, steaming strips handed to each person. The stew is ladled into bowls, thick and fragrant. Children slurp greedily, broth running down their chins. Adults chew slowly, savoring. Grease slicks fingers, marrow drips, smoke clings to hair. The dogs snap at scraps, tails wagging furiously. The sound of eating fills the valley, chewing, slurping, cracking bones. And yet amid the mess, there is order. Certain pieces are reserved, the liver for elders, the marrow bones for children, the choicest cuts for Alna. The sharing is not equal but deliberate, symbolic. Each person knows their portion, their place, their role. No one complains. To receive is to belong. As the feast stretches on, laughter rises. Hunters boast of kills, miming their throws, exaggerating near misses. Women mock them gently, rolling their eyes, reminding them of falls and stumbles. Children giggle, mimicking both sides, collapsing into fits of laughter. Even Alna smiles faintly, though her eyes remain sharp. Stories emerge, woven with the meal. An elder recounts a hunt from years past, when a mammoth was brought down at the cost of 3 men. His voice is low and steady, his hands gesturing with a bone. The others listen, nodding, murmuring. Another speaks of a great flood that swept through a distant valley, carrying shelters away. The children gasp, their eyes wide, their mouths full of meat. These are not just stories, they are memory, history, warning. The fires burn lower as the feast wanes. Bellies are full, hands greasy, faces flushed with heat and laughter. Bones are cracked one last time, marrow sucked dry. Dogs lick the ground, tails wagging. The air is heavy with smoke, grease and satisfaction. Alna rises again, her staff in hand. She speaks a few words, her voice hoarse but steady. The people quiet instantly. She lifts her staff, pointing it to the sky where stars begin to spill. She chants softly, the rhythm slow, deliberate. The others echo, their voices weaving into the night. The feast ends, not with noise but with song, a hymn of thanks, of memory, of survival. Later, as people drift into sleep, you lie back, the smoke curling into the stars. Your stomach is heavy with meat, your skin warm from fire, your ears still ringing with laughter and song. You understand now, the feast is not only about food, it is about binding, about trust, about memory. To share meat is to share life, to carve a place in the circle, to declare you belong. And at the center of it all is Alna, her staff gleaming in the firelight, her voice weaving rhythm into survival. You close your eyes, the warmth of the feast still heavy, and know that tomorrow the work will begin again. But tonight, for this moment, the band is full, whole, unshakable. The feast has ended, the fires have burned low, and the valley lies under a quilt of frost. Smoke drifts lazily into the night sky, and the stars blaze bright, untouched by cloud. Children snore in furs, their bellies heavy with stew and marrow. Dogs twitch in dreams, their paws jerking as though chasing phantom prey. The elders murmur softly near the embers, their voices fading with the fire. But beneath the hush of rest, something deeper stirs. Tonight is not only for food or laughter. Tonight is for memory, for the weight of the dead, for the rituals that bind the living to those who have gone. Burial rites begin at dawn. At the far edge of the camp, beneath a jut of limestone, the body lies, wrapped in furs, covered in ash and ochre. It waits. A young woman, no older than 20 winters, her face pale and thin, her hair streaked with clay. She died 2 days ago, her breath failing in the cold, her body too weak from hunger and childbirth. Her child lives, cradled now in the arms of her sister, but the mother has slipped into silence. Death is not rare here, it stalks every fire, every hunt, every pregnancy, but each loss strikes heavy, each absence felt. The camp has lived with her laughter, with her dance, with her hands stitching hides. Now they must live with her silence. The women gather first, they bring bowls of ochre, strings of beads, carved bones. They kneel beside the body, their hands steady. One smears red pigment across her forehead, another paints spirals on her arms. They braid her hair, weaving in shells and feathers. They tie beads around her wrists, her ankles, her neck. She is being remade, not into something new but into what she always was, memory. Alna comes last. She kneels beside the body, her staff across her lap. Her hands are slow, careful, as she presses pigment onto the woman's lips. She whispers words too low to hear, her breath visible in the cold air. When she finishes, she bows her head. The others bow too. Men gather with antler picks, their bodies tense in the frost. They move to a patch of earth not far from camp, where the soil is softer. Still, it is hard labor. Antler strikes stone, bone strikes earth, breath clouds with effort. The ground yields slowly, grudgingly. The sound of digging echoes against the limestone, a steady, heavy rhythm. Children watch from a distance, wide-eyed, their laughter gone. They whisper to one another, pointing at the dark hole growing deeper. One asks if the woman will climb out again. His mother hushes him, pulling him close. Questions like that are dangerous in the cold. When the grave is ready, the men step back, wiping sweat, their hands raw. The hole yawns dark, lined with stone and root, waiting. The body is lifted carefully, carried by women wrapped in furs. They move slowly, chanting low, their voices humming like bees. The others follow, forming a line. Drums beat faintly, rattles shake, flutes wail softly. The sound is not for frenzy but for gravity, a reminder of the weight they carry. At the grave they lower her in, her beads clink, Her shells rattle, her feathers tremble, ochre dust scatters, staining the soil red. Her child's cries echo faintly in the camp, but the mother does not stir. She lies still, painted, adorned, waiting. Alna steps forward. She holds a bowl of ochre mixed with fat, thick and shining. She scatters it over the body, the red dust falling like blood, staining the furs, the beads, the skin. She chants, her voice low and steady. The others join, their voices weaving into one. The air thrums with sound, heavy, ancient. Each person steps forward in turn, dropping something into the grave: a shell, a bead, a flint blade, a piece of meat, a carved bone, offerings, gifts, memories. Children drop flowers, their small hands trembling. Dogs whine at the edge, sensing the weight, the silence. The grave fills not with earth first, but with memory. Only after the offerings are given do the men begin to cover her. Soil falls heavy, stones clatter, roots twist, the chants rise, voices growing louder as the body disappears. When the grave is filled, the people press their palms into the earth, leaving handprints red with ochre. A fire is built beside the grave, logs stacked high, fat smeared thick, flames leaping bright. The people gather around it, their painted hands glowing in the light. They chant again, slower now, softer. The fire crackles, sparks spiraling into the sky. Alna lifts her staff, pointing it toward the flames. She speaks a few words, her voice hoarse. The others bow their heads. For a long while no one moves. They stand together in silence, the fire burning, the grave sealed, the memory carried. When the fire burns low, the people return to camp. But the day does not end in silence. It ends with food. Meat is roasted, broth boiled, marrow cracked. The feast is smaller than before, but it is deliberate. Each bite is a reminder, each sip a binding. To eat together after death is to declare, we remain. Children eat first, their mouths full, grease on their cheeks. Elders chew slowly, their eyes distant. Hunters eat in silence, their shoulders heavy. Women eat with their children in their laps, their faces painted still. Alna eats last, a strip of meat in her hands, her eyes fixed on the fire. The valley quiets again, fires burn low, smoke drifting. The grave lies at the edge, marked by stones, glowing faintly in starlight. The fire beside it smolders, sparks drifting into the night. The people sleep, their bodies curled in hides, their breath rising in rhythm, but you lie awake staring at the stars. You feel the weight of the grave, the heaviness of ochre on your skin, the chant still in your ears. You understand now burial is not only about death, it is about survival. It binds the living to the dead, the present to the past, the body to the earth. And at the center, as always, is Alna. Her hands painted the dead, her voice led the chant, her staff struck the ground. She is the bridge between life and death, between memory and survival. You close your eyes, the fire's glow still flickering against your lids, and you know, the dead are not gone. They walk in the ochre, in the chants, in the hands pressed into earth. They live in the firelight, in the rhythm, in the circle of survival. And Alna carries them in. Word count. The grave lies fresh at the edge of the camp, its mound a dark scar in the frost. The ochre stains upon the stones glow faintly red, even as the morning sun rises pale above the limestone cliffs. The smoke from last night's fire still clings low, curling over the earth, and though the people stir as they always do, scraping hides, tending fires, carrying water, the air carries a hush. A burial shifts the rhythm of the band. It reminds everyone that life is fragile, brief, and easily stolen, but it also presses them closer together. Survival now is not only about eating, not only about hunting, but about remembering, about marking their place in the world. And so, as dawn stretches into day, the camp turns toward another kind of work. This time, it is not only food or tools or clothing that they shape, it is images, etched into stone, smeared onto walls, painted with ochre and charcoal. Today is for art, not the idle kind, but the kind that speaks across generations, that tells the young what happened, that binds the dead into memory. It begins with ochre. Women and children leave camp with baskets woven from reeds, their breath steaming as they climb the ridge. They know where the earth bleeds red, at a small cut in the limestone, where rain has carved into the hill, veins of iron-rich soil gleam. The children scrape eagerly with sticks, filling their baskets with clumps of earth. Their fingers stain quickly, their nails packed with rust-red dust. The women show them how to grind the lumps between stones, how to blow gently to separate the fine powder. They hum as they work, the rhythm turning labor into lesson. Others collect charcoal from last night's fires, black and brittle. They crush it into powder with careful fingers, mixing it with fat until it smears rich and dark. A boy experiments, dragging a black line across his arm. He grins until his mother swats him with a laugh, then helps him smear it properly. Shells and bones are gathered too. Small fragments are scraped smooth, drilled with holes, strung on sinew. They will be hung beside the paintings, clicking softly in the breeze, echoing like whispers. Every sound, every line, every mark matters. By midday they are ready. Alna leads the way to the cave at the base of the limestone bluff, her staff tapping against stone. The people follow, baskets of pigment, bowls of fat, tools of bone and stone in their arms. The dogs whine at the entrance, but do not go in. The cave breathes cool air, damp and heavy, carrying the faint scent of moss and earth. Inside, the walls are alive already. Faded animals stretch across the stone, bison with arched backs, horses galloping, reindeer bowing their heads, lions crouching, spirals coil, dots scatter, handprints bloom. Some marks are fresh, bright red and black, others are faded to pale smudges, left by people long dead. The cave is both gallery and memory, a place where time folds into itself. Torches are lit, their flames leaping and casting shadows that make the painted animals move. The people murmur softly, some bowing their heads, some pressing hands to the walls. Children gape, their eyes wide in the flicker. The work begins. Women grind ochre against stone slabs, mixing it with fat and spit until it becomes paste. They smear it with fingers, with brushes of moss, with hollow bones used as blowpipes. Men draw with charcoal, scratching outlines into stone, filling them with pigment. Children press their hands to the wall, palms coated in red, leaving prints like echoes. A bison grows beneath Alna's hand. She moves slowly, her fingers steady, despite her age. She smears its flanks with ochre, its mane with charcoal, its hooves with black lines. She adds spirals around it, dots above it, symbols no one speaks but everyone knows. She leans back, studying, then nods. It is not only an animal, it is spirit, memory, guide. Nearby, another paints a line of reindeer, their heads lowered, their antlers branching. A hunter adds small figures beside them, stick-like spears raised. The children giggle, pointing, recognizing the story. The last hunt, the drive into the river bend. They laugh at the stumbling figure, painted clumsy, falling headlong. The hunters laugh too, shaking their heads. Even in memory, humor survives. Further back, a young woman paints a lion. Its mouth gapes wide, its teeth sharp, its body crouched low. She paints dots around it, like sparks, like eyes. Her brother watches nervously, muttering about inviting spirits too strong. She shrugs, pressing more ochre into the wall. To paint is to claim, to bind, to control. As the walls fill, voices rise, a hum at first, then a chant. Low, steady, echoing, the sound vibrates against stone, wrapping the paintings in rhythm. Drums thud softly, rattles clatter, flutes keen faintly. The cave itself becomes part of the song, the echoes layering, multiplying. The animals seem to move, their hooves pounding, their jaws snapping, their bodies shifting. The handprints pulse in the flicker. Alna stands before her bison, her staff raised. She chants louder, her voice rough but strong. She stamps her foot, once, twice, 3 times. The people echo, their voices rising. The cave shakes with sound. The firelight blurs. The painted animals leap. You feel it in your chest, in your bones, in the stone itself. The cave is alive. When the painting is done, offerings are made. Beads are hung on cracks in the stone. Shells are pressed into crevices. Fat is smeared at the base of figures. A child drops a toy carved from bone, whispering to it before letting go. The people bow their heads, pressing their palms against the walls, leaving red handprints beside the animals. Alna steps forward last. She dips her fingers into ochre and presses her hand against the bison's flank. Her palm leaves a mark, red and glowing in the torchlight. She holds it there, whispering, her eyes closed. When she withdraws, the mark lingers, bright, eternal. The people file out slowly, silently. The torches sputter. The cave darkens. The paintings vanish into shadow. Outside, the sun has dipped, the sky glowing orange and pink. Fires are lit again in camp, meat roasted, broth stirred. Children chatter about the animals they saw, imitating the painted figures. Hunters nod solemnly, their eyes distant. women hum softly, the rhythm of the chant still echoing in their ears. Alna sits by the central fire, her staff across her knees, her face streaked with ochre. She is weary, her shoulders bent, but her eyes are sharp. She has guided them again, carried them into memory, bound them to the walls, to the spirits, to the past. As darkness falls, the camp quiets, children curl into hides, their palms still red, dogs sprawl near fires, twitching in sleep. The drums lie still, the rattles silent, the flutes quiet. The only sound is the crackle of fire and the whisper of wind. You lie back, staring at the stars above the limestone ridge. You feel the weight of the cave, the glow of ochre still in your eyes, the chant still in your chest. You understand now, art is not decoration, it is memory, it is story, it is survival made visible. The animals painted will guide the hunts, the handprints will remind the children, the spirals and dots will carry meaning long after voices fall silent. And at the center, as always, is Alna, her hand pressed to the wall, her voice ringing in the cave, her staff striking stone. She is dancer, queen, and now artist, memory etched in flesh and stone alike. You close your eyes, the smell of ochre heavy, the flicker of fire behind your lids, and you know the walls will outlast them all. The bison, the lions, the handprints, they will remain when flesh is gone, when fires die, when voices fade. The cave will carry them forward, across years, across centuries, across millennia. And Alna's hand will remain there too, pressed eternal against the flank of the painted bison, guiding those who come long after the fire has burned to ash. Word count, Rite 6. The night after the teachings has passed, leaving the valley quiet except for the crackle of dying embers and the distant howl of wolves. Somewhere beyond the ridges, the people sleep heavy, their bodies pressed close under furs, their bellies full from broth, their voices worn from chanting, but the rhythm of life never stills for long. When dawn drags its pale light across the frost, the band wakes once again, and now the rhythm shifts toward danger, for the valley is not only home but also exposed, a place where predators wander and rivals lurk. This day belongs to vigilance. It belongs to survival, not against hunger alone, but against the teeth and claws and spears that threaten from beyond the firelight. The first warning comes with the dogs. Their barking is sharp, insistent, different from the playful snaps of morning. Their hackles rise, their eyes fixed on the ridge. The people stiffen. A child clutches her mother's leg, whispering. Men reach for spears, women hush their children. The air changes, the frost itself seeming sharper. Alna rises slowly, her staff in hand. She moves to the edge of camp, her eyes narrowing at the tree line. You follow her gaze and see movement, shadows shifting among the birch trunks, shapes low to the ground, wolves, a pack, their eyes glinting faintly in the half-light. The hunters spread out, spears raised, their breath steaming. The women pull children back, ushering them toward the fires. Dogs growl, pacing. The wolves do not charge, not yet. They circle, testing, their paws soundless in the frost, their breath curls white, their teeth flashing faintly. A drumbeat begins, low and steady. One of the elders, his hands trembling, strikes slowly. Thud, thud, thud. The people hum with it, their voices weaving. The fire is stoked high, fat thrown into the flames until it roars. Sparks burst upward, the light spilling across the valley floor. The wolves hesitate, their ears flatten, their eyes gleam. They pace, restless, but the fire and the sound hold them back. A hunter hurls a spear into the ground before them, the wood quivering, the point gleaming. The wolves snarl, snapping, but do not advance. Slowly, reluctantly, they retreat into the trees, their shapes fading into shadow. The people exhale, shoulders slumping. The children cry softly, their mothers soothing them. The hunters retrieve their spears, checking the ground for tracks. The dogs bark until silenced. The fire crackles, throwing heat into the tense air. Alna remains at the edge of camp, her staff planted firmly, her eyes on the tree line. She whispers something low, almost a growl, as though speaking not to her people but to the wolves themselves. Only when the forest is still again does she turn back, her face unreadable. The threat of wolves lingers, but the day's dangers are not finished. By midday, as hunters scout the ridge, another sound carries down into the valley. Voices, not theirs, strangers. The hunters return swiftly, their faces grim. They speak of figures on the ridge, men and women from another band, their bodies painted, their spears sharp. The people stiffen again, gathering close. Strangers can mean trade, yes, but they can also mean theft, or blood. The camp gathers near the central fire. Alna sits, her staff across her knees, listening. The hunters argue. Some say to meet them, to offer food, to speak. Others say to drive them off, to throw spears before they descend. The voices rise, sharp, heated. Children cry, frightened by the tension. Alna lifts her staff. Silence falls. She speaks slowly, her voice hoarse but strong. She reminds them of the last meeting, when beads were traded for flint. She reminds them too of the raid seasons past, when shelters were burned and meat stolen. Her words are not many, but they are sharp as flint. She stamps her staff 3 times, steady, final. The decision is made. They will prepare for both. The camp moves quickly. Fires are stoked higher, weapons gathered, children hidden. Women grind ochre, painting spirals and stripes onto arms and faces. Men smear fat into their hair, making it gleam. They rattle shells, they beat drums, they stamp their feet. The valley becomes a wall of sound and light. When the strangers descend, they find not a quiet camp but a storm. Fires roar, drums pound, voices chant, bodies gleam red and black in the firelight. Alna stands at the center, her staff raised, her eyes blazing. She does not shout, she does not charge. She simply stands, painted and tall, her presence as heavy as the fire itself. The strangers pause at the edge of the valley, their spears raised. They hesitate, their eyes flicking between the fires, the drums, the painted bodies. They murmur to one another, uncertain. A hunter from Alna's band steps forward, holding out a strip of meat. His voice is loud, clear, carrying across the frost. He speaks of trade, of peace, of food. The strangers murmur again, lowering their spears slightly. Slowly, cautiously, they approach. They take the meat, sniffing, tasting. Their eyes linger on the fire, on the painted people, on Alna herself. One of them holds out a pouch of stone flakes, sharp and gleaming, flint, precious, rare. The exchange is made, meat for flint, beads for hides. No blood is spilled. The strangers retreat, climbing back to the ridge, their voices fading. The camp exhales again, shoulders dropping, children laughing nervously. But the memory of danger remains. That night, the fires are stoked higher than usual. Drums are beaten longer, chants carried into the dark. Children are painted again, their brows marked with ochre. The people dance, stamping harder, louder, fierce. Alna leads them, her spirals glowing in the firelight, her staff striking the earth. She moves slowly, deliberately, her steps heavy. She stamps 3 times, the ground trembling, the fire leaping. The people echo her, their voices rising into the sky. The wolves may return, the strangers may come again, the cold may deepen, the hunger may grow, but tonight in the firelight, in the stamping, in the chant, they are strong, they are bound, they are alive. And at the center is Alna, her staff in hand, her eyes glowing, her presence unshakable. She is more than dancer, more than queen, more than memory. She is shield, she is rhythm, she is survival itself. You lie back, the stars sharp above, smoke drifting across them. Your ears still ring with drums, your chest still hums with chants, your skin still smells of ochre. You understand now, danger is constant, wolves, strangers, cold, hunger, but rhythm is stronger, rhythm is shield, rhythm is memory, rhythm is life. And Alna carries it all, her staff striking the earth, her voice weaving through the night, her presence binding the people against every darkness. You close your eyes, the fire flickering behind your lids, and you know tomorrow the wolves may return, the strangers may descend, the cold may steal breath. But as long as they stamp, as long as they chant, as long as they dance in the firelight, they will survive. And Alna will lead them, her rhythm outlasting even the dangers of the world. Word count, G6530. The stars still hang low when the camp begins to stir, faint, silver light dripping across the valley. Frost hardens on every hide, every bone frame, every tool left outside. Dogs rise first, shaking off the cold, sniffing the ground, their breath streaming like smoke. Then the people move, slow at first, their bodies weary from the weight of so many nights of ritual, from feasts and burials, from danger and teaching. But this morning is different. There is a heaviness in the air, not of fear but of culmination. The people feel it even if they cannot name it. They know the cycle is reaching its crest. Tonight will be the final great gathering before they break camp, before they move across the valley to seek new grounds. Tonight the rhythm will close its circle, binding past and present and future. Tonight Alna will dance one last time. The day begins with preparation, as all great nights must. Fires are coaxed to life, smoke curling into the brittle air. Women mix ochre in bowls, grinding it fine, their hands red with dust. Men carve spears anew, not for the hunt but for ceremony, the wood polished, the stone points gleaming. Children are given tasks, fetching water, carrying wood, gathering stones to ring the central fire. Even the smallest contribute, their hands clumsy but eager, their faces solemn with pride. Alna watches it all from her place near the fire. She is old, her body bent, her hair streaked with white, but her presence is undiminished. Her staff rests across her knees, the ivory polished smooth by decades of touch. She hums softly, a tune older than any of them, and the people hum with her as they work. The camp moves like one body, every task part of the same rhythm. By midday, the valley is alive with sound. Drums are tested, their hides beaten taut, flutes keen high, rattles clatter, children clap in time, their laughter echoing, dogs bark, weaving among them, as though caught in the rhythm too. The limestone walls amplify it, throwing the sound back, layering it until the valley itself seems to sing. Food is prepared in abundance. Deer meat roasts over spits, fat sizzling into fire, pots of broth bubble with roots and herbs, marrow bones are split, their contents scooped and stirred into mixtures of fat and pigment. The smell is thick, filling the valley with smoke and grease. It clings to skin, to hair, to hides, even the air tastes of it. But the food is not eaten yet, it waits as all wait, for the night. As the sun dips low, preparations quicken. Women paint one another with ochre and charcoal, spirals across arms, dots on brows, lines down legs. Men paint too, their faces striped, their chests streaked. Children giggle as their cheeks are smeared, though their mothers hush them quickly. Even dogs are marked, streaks of red across their fur. The entire camp becomes a canvas, bodies transformed into moving symbols. The fire is built high at the center, logs are stacked, fat smeared thick, sparks leaping as the flames catch. The light grows brighter as the sky darkens, shadows stretching long against the limestone. The people gather in a wide circle, their painted bodies glowing in the firelight. The drums begin, low and steady, the flutes join, shrill and sharp, the rattles shake, the voices rise. Alna steps into the circle. She is painted head to toe, her skin streaked with spirals of red and black, her hair braided with shells and beads. She wears a cloak of fur draped across her shoulders, rattling with bones and teeth. Her staff gleams in the firelight, its ivory surface glowing. She lifts it high, and the camp falls silent. She stamps her foot, once, twice, 3 times. The drums answer. She stamps again, harder, faster. The people follow, their feet slapping the earth in time. She sways her arms, and they sway too. She chants, her voice hoarse but strong, and the camp echoes her. The fire roars higher, sparks spiraling into the night. The dance begins. It is not wild at first, it is steady, deliberate, every step precise. The people move as one, their painted bodies blurring in the firelight, their voices weaving into rhythm. The drums pound, the flutes keen, the rattles clatter, the ground shakes with stamping feet, the limestone walls echoing it back. The valley becomes a drum, the sky its skin. But as the rhythm builds, the dance grows wilder. The people leap, spin, stamp harder. Spirals blur, stripes streak, dots shimmer. The fire blazes higher, fat sizzling, sparks bursting. Shadows whirl across the limestone, animals seeming to leap and run, spirits flickering. The people scream, chant, wail, their voices roar. Children squeal, stamping with tiny feet, their painted faces glowing. Dogs bark, howling, in rhythm. The valley is alive, trembling, roaring. Alna moves at the center, tireless, fierce. Her staff strikes the ground again and again, sparks leaping with each blow. She spins, her cloak flaring, her beads clattering. She stamps harder, faster, her spirals glowing. Her voice rises above all others, sharp, piercing, commanding. She is not only leading, she is channeling, pulling the rhythm from the earth, from the fire, from the stars themselves. The people follow her, drawn, bound. They leap higher, stamp harder, scream louder. The fire roars, the drums thunder, the flutes shriek, the valley shakes. The stars above seem to pulse in time. And then at the height of it, Alna stops. She lifts her staff high, her body trembling, her breath heavy. The drums cut, the flutes fall silent, the rattle still, the fire crackles, the only sound. The people freeze, breathless, sweat dripping, eyes wide. She speaks, her voice low, hoarse but carrying. She speaks of survival, of hunger, of danger. She speaks of birth, of death, of memory. She speaks of rhythm, of fire, of spirit. Her words are few, but they are heavy, sharp as flint, bright as sparks. The people listen, silent, their breath held. Children press against their mothers, wide-eyed. Dogs whine softly, tails low. Then she stamps her staff once more. The sound cracks through the valley, sharp, final. The people fall to their knees, pressing their foreheads to the earth. The fire roars, sparks spiraling high. The drums thud once, the flutes keen once, the rattles shake once, then all is silent again. Alna lowers her staff slowly. She stands tall for a long moment, her painted body glowing in the firelight, her eyes reflecting the flames. Then she lowers her arms, she sinks to her knees, she bows her head. The people bow with her, the entire camp pressed to the ground. They do not speak, they do not move, they only breathe, slow, steady, together. The fire burns lower, the stars wheel higher, the valley grows quiet, the echo of rhythm fading. The people rise slowly, one by one, their faces solemn, their bodies weary. They drift back to their shelters, their children, their fires. They eat quietly, small scraps, broth, marrow. They curl into hides, their painted skin smudging against fur. They sleep, their breath rising in rhythm, soft, steady. Alna remains by the fire. She sits alone, her staff across her knees, her eyes fixed on the embers. She hums softly, almost inaudible, a tune older than the valley, older than the people, older than memory. Her voice trembles, but it carries. It weaves through the smoke, through the stars, through the silence. You lie back, your body heavy, your eyes closing. The fire flickers behind your lids. The chant hums in your chest. The rhythm echoes in your bones. You understand now. This is not only ritual, it is culmination. It is legacy. It is survival carried forward, bound in fire and rhythm, etched into memory. The night stretches, slow and long. The fire burns to ash. The stars fade. Dawn creeps pale across the valley. The people wake, stretch, begin their tasks again. But something has shifted. They are bound tighter now, carried forward by rhythm, by fire, by memory. And at the center is Alna, her staff across her knees, her eyes sharp despite her weariness. She has danced the last great dance, led the last great chant, stamped the last great rhythm. She has bound her people to past and future, to earth and sky, to fire and memory. The valley will not forget, the cave paintings will not fade, the children will not lose the steps, the rhythm will not die. You close your eyes once more, your breath slow, steady. The fire has burned low, the night is calm, the stars soft. The story slows with you, each word gentler, each sentence longer. Your body softens, your breath deepens. The rhythm is still there but quieter now, slower, like a heartbeat easing into sleep. And as you drift, you hear it one last time, the stamp of Alna's foot, the hum of her voice, the crackle of fire, a queen's rhythm, carried across millennia, whispering still. Sleep comes, heavy and warm.